What's up, nerds? Okay, it's once again Monday night. I don't know. You know, it's just when you have a brain that just is like, I want to be depressed, it's real difficult to like just exist. I don't know. So we're going to check in. This is my week 2 30 books in 30 days check-in. I'm going to try and make it much shorter than the last one because honestly, I just want to go to bed. So that means I'll be waking up early again and editing it again and then uploading it because I'm not doing it tonight. Like, I'm just telling you right now. I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to turn these lights off. Thank you, Lily. I'm going to wash my face and then I'm going to go to bed. By the way, for everyone wondering how this little turnip is, she is doing pretty well. The crisis passed, but I have to go to the real vet and get her put on thyroid medication and then we'll see. So, but she's old. She's an old lady. She's 15 and a half years old. So, yeah. Okay. Where we left off last week, I had read 8 books. It is now day 17. And as of today, I've read 16 books. So I'm once again 2 days behind. That's fine. It's totally fine. Totally doable. If my life would stop getting in the way of my reading, it would be even more doable. So, but let's go one by one. Okay, Lily's licking my foot and it tickles. Honey, you can't lick mommy foot. Mommy foot doesn't have fur on it, so your little bristle tongue hurts. This is book number 9 out of 30, and that is The Counselor by E.J. Beaton. So this is a book that I picked up a couple years ago when it was first published after the recommendation of some of my friends who just were like, this is awesome. And these are friends whose fantasy recommendations that I trust a lot. So when I saw this on, I think this, yeah, Book Outlet, I just picked it up. But I actually ended up listening to the audiobook. And the audiobook is done by Margot, who is, for those of you 90s kids, she was from Nickelodeon. More recently, book people might know her from the classic Tamsin Muir series, The Locked Tomb. You know, she narrates Gideon the Ninth, Harrow the Ninth, all that stuff. So yeah, she's great. But this book is about a young woman who was an orphan, she's a scholar. She was taken in by the queen of this realm that they live in. Don't ask me details. I'll talk about that in a second. She essentially was like a surrogate mother to her, even while she was serving her in like a political fashion. But now the queen has been assassinated, and her dying wish was for our main character, whose name is Lysand, to be the counselor. And the counselor is a position in this realm where if there is no designated heir for the kingdom, the counselor will take over the duties of the monarch as well as choosing the next monarch. Lysand has a huge burden placed on her shoulders, and she's not even just not noble, she's also very she's an orphan. She comes from a background of nobody even knows who she is. So what we do is we watch her go from this meek, orphan, grieving person to a person who is confident in her own power, and she also is a very ethical person, and she has what's the word I'm looking for? Not optimism. There's a word. I've lost it. Pippin's looking at the ceiling fan. He's like, what? Not optimistic. Whatever. Hopefully you guys know what I mean. Basically, what this reminded me of the most, if you guys have read The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison, this gave me strong Goblin Emperor vibes. Like a person thrown into a position where they have no experience and they have to constantly toe the line in between doing the right thing and doing the thing that is expected of them, and corralling all of these political players. So yeah, apparently it's a series too. I thought it was a standalone, and the second book is coming out next year. Am I wrong about that? I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to reread it though, because I said this is what I was going to talk about, and that's that as much as I like Moira Kirk and I think that the audiobook is really great, my brain was not in a position while I was listening to it to actually absorb much of the detail. So I got like the gist of the story, and like when my brain was paying attention, like key moments were paid attention to, but there were large parts of this series, mostly the world building, the tertiary and some even secondary characters. I couldn't even tell you their names. I couldn't even remember the main character's name. That it just went in one ear out the other. I don't know why. Some fantasy books hit me this way that I can't do them on audio first. I have to read them physically first, and then when I reread them, I can do the audio, and I think this is the case for this. So I will have to reread this in hard copy before the sequel comes out. I have no idea when I'll get to that because it is kind of long. So, but I ended up giving this 4 stars. So book 10, this is a wild one. So I actually got this book on a Friends of the Library sale for $3, and that's Scorched Grace by Margot Douaihy. Had to look that up again. And this is a book, it's not a cozy mystery, I don't think. It's cozy-ish in that it has like some elements, but it's also very, very dark. And it also has elements of literary fiction in that the main character, it's like a character study almost of this woman whose name is Holiday Walsh. She's now Sister Holiday, and she's a member, pretty new member. She hasn't even taken her permanent vows yet, of this convent. Oh, Sisters of the Sublime Blood. And they are a progressive order of nuns, and there's only 4 of them left when we start the book, plus, wait, there's only 3 of them left, plus Holiday. And so when we start the book, she's working at a Catholic school. She's found her place at this convent, but also there's still conflict because Holiday is a queer woman. She's covered in tattoos from not from head to toe, but from neck to toe. They make her wear a scarf. They make her wear gloves, even in the scorching, humid heat of New Orleans, which is where this is set. And boy, was it sweaty. I could have done without some of the mentions of how sweaty it was. I really, cut half of them out, we get it still. And then one day there's a fire in her convent. And it's also a school. So it's a convent, attached to a school, and the nuns are all teachers. The head nun is the principal, and then there's other, secular teachers as well who teach other subjects. And it's a private school. There's a fire. And Holiday is in the process of ditching a meeting of the other nuns to smoke a cigarette in the alley, as one does, because look at this. Look at this cover, I love it. And she sees that the building next door is on fire, the school is on fire, and she watches as the janitor falls out the window on fire and dies. And so that starts this whole thing off. She becomes a suspect because she is tattooed from neck to foot, and she just happens to be there. And it also appears someone might be framing her because evidence keeps popping up. So she decides she's going to solve the mystery on her own because she loved detective stories when she was a kid, and she feels very protective of her new home, which is the only place that she's been able to find solace after a very traumatic childhood / adolescence / adulthood. So that's the mystery. Honestly, though, the mystery was the least interesting part of this book for me. So I don't talk about it a lot, but I am sort of a lapsed Catholic. I don't go to church anymore unless I go with my mom for holidays and stuff. But religion was a huge part of my childhood because my mom is very religious. So there's a part of me that misses the way I used to feel about it, and I don't feel that way now anymore, which is sad. Whatever. It's a personal thing. We're going to get back to religion in a second with another book. So this is the first book I've seen in a really long time that manages to soothe that part of me that misses spirituality being a regular part of my life in a specific Catholic way, and still makes terms with my more progressive values that do not mesh with the traditional conservative church. She's this bundle of contradictions, and religion is so, so, so important to her because I'll read you a passage in a second. For her, she's able to push aside the outside world and interpret things the way that she wants to for her own spirituality. She's an anarchist nun, screw what the Pope says. He's just a man. I'm going to believe what I want to believe. Her God is a they. Because her words also are so good. So let me see if I can find this section, and you'll see what I mean about the way she talks about religion. So this is just after the fire has happened, and they go to mass because in times of crisis, people go to church more. So it was basically at the beginning of the book, there's an empty church with only the regulars and the scragglers. And then by the end of the book, once there's been more stuff going on, more fires, more deaths, the church is packed. So that was also interesting, and I thought relatable. Okay, so this is them at mass pretty soon after the fire. Our priest, Father Reese, gave a dreadfully uninspired homily honoring Jack Carolla, that's the janitor, and extolling the graces of repentance. Somehow he turned Jack's death into another reason to hate ourselves. What about mercy, comfort? If punishment is straight, forgiveness is queer, if only because we are addicted to apologizing. Sister Honor quietly harumphed and whispered across me to Sister Augustine. Just what we need right now, half-hearted words from Father Reese. I'm skipping some stuff because that's not relevant. Father Reese's homily was pathetic. Like Sister Honor, I grieved for the congregation who hungered for inspiration in the wake of Jack's fiery death. The reassurance of the word was what all of us wanted in church. Defibrillate us. Shock our hearts. Tell us that pain is okay. That life is fucked but still worth it. Tell us that pain is a crucial part of everyone's story, every birth and rebirth. Tell us we don't need to answer every question. The divine mystery sparked my conversion. If it worked on me, it could lift anyone. Perhaps Father Reese was exhausted. We all were. But come on. So often I wished it could be me or any of my sisters up at that pulpit, sharing that passion that we felt every day. Even thorny Sister Honor could stir us into feeling the Lord, or at least scare us. Feeling something was better than being numb. Okay, so she's wrestling with patriarchy also, in case you didn't know. I thought of something while I was reading that, and now I've forgotten. There was something else I wanted to say. So this book is really complicated. It's trying some really cool things. It doesn't quite succeed at everything. My biggest complaint was that the ending was very rushed, and some really wild stuff happened, and some stuff with some huge implications for her going forward, because this is a series. Book 2's already out. Don't know when I'm gonna get around to it, but maybe if it shows up for $3 at the Friends of the Library again. So that's this book. Highly recommend if you like mysteries, but even if you don't, the contradictions in like belief systems all existing in one person was fascinating to me. I gave this 4 stars. Okay, that was book 10. Now book 11 was The Old Woman with the Knife by Byeong-Mo. I think that's how you say it. And it was translated by Chi-Young Kim. So this is a Korean bestseller. It was published in 2013 in Korea, and it was brought to the United States, the English-speaking world, and translated for publication in 2022. I picked it up on Book Outlet. As you can see, it's tiny, it's cute, and I knew it wasn't a cozy going in, like, because there's this trend of like older female characters being explored and like taking on the patriarchy and sexism. So I was prepared for that, but like darker, more of a thriller / crime novel. It explores this 65-year-old woman who is an assassin and has been an assassin for decades, but now she's feeling her age, and she's feeling the pressure of other people feeling her age. Unfortunately, this did not work for me. Did I give this two stars? Yeah, I did. I gave this 2 stars. Very first chapter, I was into it because it opens with her committing an assassination. But then as soon as the personal stuff started coming in, the style just like, it was not holding my attention. I didn't care about this weird, Lily, stop. She's chewing my books again. I didn't care about this weird vendetta that this guy named codename Bullfight had against her. I didn't care about her backstory at all. I didn't care for the style at all, which was probably the problem, if we're being honest. Like, this translator, I have no idea, because it was a major bestseller in Korea, so it must have done something right over there. So I'm thinking that the problem is either cultural mistranslation, it didn't get here for me, or the translator just wasn't that good at writing. I don't know. I do know that a lot of books that I've read translated from Korean have a more plain style, but like, then again, a lot of them don't. So I don't know. I don't know enough to know what I don't know. All I know is that I didn't like this, and I didn't like the ending either. So luckily it was really short. I mean, this is a 237-page book with like pretty big font and small pages. So I don't know. Other people have really liked it. Maybe I'm an outlier, but I really didn't enjoy it, so I am going to be unhauling it. Okay, so book 12 was an audiobook, and I need to get a physical copy because I love Tananarive do, and I read The Between. So this is her very first novel. It was published in 1995. Oh, I was going to look up who did the audiobook. I'll put it here. He did a great job. But there's this like storyteller quality to her prose, even though it's a very different environment and a very different story, that like it just felt the same as when I listened to The Good House last summer, even though everything about it was different. Like her style is just, she has a voice and she's so good at it. So this is a story that I don't think I would have been interested in reading if it wasn't written by Tananarive. So it's about a black man who lives in Miami. Is it Miami? I know it's Florida. Is it Florida? Oh my God, my brain. Anyway, he lives with his family. And when he was a child, he has 2 kids and a wife. And when he was a child, he almost drowned. And his grandma actually did drown, saving his life. And so the whole premise behind this book is like, what would happen if you were supposed to die and you didn't? And then, so this guy, he introduces us to his life after that near-death experience. And we meet his wife, who he has had marriage problems with, and counseling and therapy are a huge part of this book, which I loved. Him just dealing with life, but also it slowly creeps in. He starts having these nightmares, and he starts like questioning reality, and things that happened didn't happen, and things that he thought didn't happen did happen. And he's just, it's this, you're so close inside of his head that you feel it happening too. I don't know. It was just wild as the book descended into not chaos, but something very, very unsettling. And the way that it ends up was very good, but it was also kind of depressing. I liked The Good House better for sure, not just because she's a more assured author in The Good House, but because that book's ending lifts you up, or this one lifts you up, but also it's pushing you down at the same time. So I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but I cannot recommend Tananarive enough. I've now read 2 of her books and they've both been excellent. So, 4 stars. And I'm so excited to read The Reformatory next month. Well, we'll see, because it's for book club in October, so maybe I should wait until October to read it, but I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'm very excited to read The Reformatory. That was book 12, 4 stars. Okay, next up is a book that I'm gonna have a lot to say about. So that's Mr. Magic by Kiersten White. So last year I read Hyde. I was very much in the minority of liking that book. I didn't love it. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was imperfect, but I enjoyed it. I saw what she was going for. And I straight up did not understand people who gave it terrible ratings. Like, sure, 3 stars, fine. I understand that. But like 2 stars and 1 stars, I was like, this book, like, what kind of books are you guys giving 1 star to? I literally don't understand. This book is getting not as badly, like more people are liking this one than liked Hyde. But again, like there's this disconnect between what the author is doing and what people are experiencing. And this one, I will preface this, like if you are interested in this book about what I say next, you have to read the author's note first. I wish she would have put it at the beginning of the book because it recontextualizes the whole thing and it completely changed my perception of the novel in a really good way. So this is a book, it talks about on the blurb about a children's TV show called Mr. Magic that every millennial basically, that's who she's writing for. But children all across the world for decades watch this show called Mr. Magic, but nobody can remember anything about it. There's no documentation. They can't find anything on IMDb. There's no footage, but everyone remembers it. So it existed, but there's no proof that it existed. So our main character, whose name is Val, Valentina is her name. She goes by Val. She has been raised on this ranch with her father, and she has no memory from before the age of 8. And one day she comes home to find her father has died. He had a stroke. She had been his caregiver, and he is now dead. So she is, in a sense, free. And when they publish his obituary, people see it in the paper who have been looking for her and her father, and who shows up at her house. But these, well, it's 3 of them, but there's 5, including her. And there were 6 kids. They were on this television show together. The very last season, the very last iteration of this Mr. Magic show, Val was one of the kids on it with these other 5 kids. And 3 of them show up at her father's funeral and they say, "Oh my God, I'm so glad we found you." And she like knows them subconsciously, but doesn't know them. She doesn't remember them. She just feels like she knows them. And so it's very clear that she's repressing things. Long story short, I mean, this is the thing that I had the most criticism for, actually, but you can, once you know what's going on later in the book, you can sort of go back and say, oh, that's why she did this. But she just straight up leaves her home that she hasn't basically left in 30 years because her father was trying to keep her safe. So he like kept her isolated on this ranch, and she just leaves with these guys that she just met. And she has a go bag because they were like on the run, and he knew if people ever found them, he was going to take her and go somewhere else. So she takes her go bag and she gets in this car and she just drives across Utah. And they end up at this really fucking creepy house that's like 6 stories tall, and the windows are 6 stories tall, and everyone's like really creeped out by it, and there's this weird hum in the area. Anyway, there's a reunion of this TV show, and they've been looking for her for years, but they specifically want her to participate in this podcast reunion where they're being interviewed about their experience on the show. So that's the setup. But obviously things are not the way that they seem. And the important thing to know, and I know this is technically spoilers, but it's also not spoilers because it's a metaphor. This is a book, like if I can see reading this and not reading the acknowledgments or reading them too late, where this book makes no fucking sense because you don't know what she's writing about. What this book is about is religious childhood trauma. So it's not, I've seen people say it's an allegory. It's not an allegory. An allegory is a tale that has specific corollaries for everything, every person, every place that relates to something else. This is a metaphor. It's more fluid. I didn't know this. I knew that Kiersten White was a Mormon, but I didn't know that she had left Mormonism. And most people didn't, apparently, because there's news articles about it. You can Google it. Actually, I'll link one down below where she talks about leaving Mormonism. And it was their treatment of queer kids that really sparked her leaving. But I mean, it's just a snowball effect. That was just the thing that triggered it finally. But anyway, she left Mormonism. And this is a book about the experience of what strict, zealous, fundamentalist religion, or even just regular old flavor religion, can do to the mind of a child. And thus, oh, Pippin, honey, get off my computer. And thus, like, who you are as a child and the experiences you have, what determines what kind of adult that you are. So childhood trauma, obviously, for that reason is really important. But it's a very specific kind of trauma that nobody is unpacking. Honest to God, like, when I was reading this, knowing that's what she was writing about, it meant so much more. Everything made so much more sense. Random lines that I would have been like, what does that mean? Made sense. And I just think that it succeeded marvelously. Like, this is a very personal story, and she's like writing at it sideways. Like, this isn't about Mormonism, although it's pretty easy to guess that the characters in this small idyllic village in the desert are Mormon, because halfway through the book she mentions that somebody mentions that their ancestors were sent out by Brigham Young from Salt Lake City in like lines to settle Utah, because each different village was a way stop, and like some people would stop and then some people would keep going. But like people Brigham Young didn't like, or they were politically troublesome, he would send them far away. And that's what happened to these people. So they got stuck in this place, but what they found in the desert was something else, okay? But it's all a metaphor, because like this childhood show is just a way in for her to talk about what we do to children by exposing them to harmful religions. And there's also a lot of stuff in here about the patriarchy. So if you hate the patriarchy and you like books about not liking the patriarchy, this is a good one for you. Anyway, when we got to the end of this book, I literally started nothing like super sad was happening, but just like the catharsis of the experience of talking about being made smaller, being told that you're wrong, being made to feel broken from such an early age. There was a line in here where it was talking about it makes everybody the same, and like how boring that is. And I was just like, everything with that she was saying, I was like, oh my God. And I just started sobbing. It was like a Saturday morning, and I'm sitting on my couch in my pajamas with my crazy hair because I hadn't had a shower yet, and I hadn't had breakfast yet because I was reading this, and I was hungry, and I was tired, and I was like sobbing just for catharsis. So yeah, I'm a fan. So it wasn't perfect again. Like, I think there were some things she could have done a little better, including noting at the beginning that it's about religious trauma, because I really think you need to know that going in. Highly recommend this. I want people to rethink Kiersten White, because I don't think we're doing her justice. She's very, talented. 4.5 stars. Oh, Pippin, sorry I scared you. Come here, baby. Oh my God, he's so big. Are you still growing? I think he's still growing. He's over a year old now, and I think he's still growing. Is your Maine Coon parts still growing? Say hi to everybody. Hi. Say I'm very cute. Next up is book 14. Wait, that was book 13. Mr. Magic was 13, ironically. And this is 14, and that is Court of Wanderers by Chupeco. This is the second book in the Reaper duology that started with Silver Under Nightfall. I liked Silver Under Nightfall just for the vibes, but it was really like more of a surface reading experience than I was expecting. And unfortunately, this continued the exact same thing, except the experience of that was just not as fun, because I was like, we've done this before. It just felt like more of the same. It didn't feel like anything moved. It was just this. So if you don't like this super a lot, the vibes, you're not going to have a great time. I mean, it was fine. It was good. I mean, I had to find enough time reading it, but I'm not going to reread it. And I really wish I hadn't bought this new. I really wish that. So I'm gonna be unhauling, I think, both of these books. So I'm really upset, because even though this was fine and I liked it, when I heard the premise of the first book and when I heard people talking about how much they loved it, I was like, oh, this must be special. And it just wasn't. It was fine. The characters are doing things, but I don't feel things for them. I don't know how to explain it. It's fine. It's totally fine. Vampires, polyamory, violence, mommy issues. You know, it's got it all. But I just don't feel that emotionally connected to it. So 3 stars. Okay, and that was book 14. Book 15 is another audiobook. So this is How Far the Light Reaches, the story of a life in 10 sea creatures, or something like that. So this is a series of 10 essays by Sabrina Imbler. They narrate the audiobook themselves. They are a queer, biracial, Asian American person who is half Chinese, half white. And they love the ocean and they love science. So all of this stuff combines to make these essays. It was very uneven for me, though. So the way they would pick a sea creature, like the very first one is about feral goldfish, which was super interesting actually, because I had no idea. Apparently goldfish are a huge problem, not just because we don't take care of them properly and they die when they could live 20 years. They die after like 6 months, a year, 2 years if they're lucky, because they never stop growing if in the proper environment. But people like the author, instead of waiting for them to die, they have compassionate hearts and they release the goldfish into the wild, into rivers, into lakes, into ponds. And goldfish are very hardy, apparently, and they have turned feral. And now there are feral goldfish everywhere, harming ecosystems, stirring up silt because they like to dig, eating food that is meant for other types of animals, and just causing some shit. So, and then they parallel each sea creature or something about that sea creature with an experience in their life, because it's also a memoir. So it's half book about sea creatures, half memoir. And that essay was really successful. And so was, let's see, my other favorites were the octopus one, where they talk about this octopus who famously laid her eggs on this cliff in the San Francisco Bay, and for 4.5 years watched over them, brooded them, and starved herself until they hatched, and then she died, which is that's just an insane amount of time. Anyway, they parallel that with their eating disorder and their experience with their own bodies and starving themselves. Those two were really successful. And then there were other essays where it was just like, you're reaching. Like, it felt like the connection didn't feel genuine to me between what was going on with the sea creature and the story in their life. And another thing is like, some of the essays, I just wasn't interested in their life. I was like, I don't care. Get back to the whales. Get back to the hybrid creatures that you're talking about. Actually, that was one of the better essays, Hybrids, where they parallel hybrid animals in the wild that mate with each other and produce animals that are not in one species or another, with their biraciality and racism and stuff. That was really interesting. But ultimately, I just gave this 3.5 stars because I did have such a problem staying interested in some of the memoir aspects, and I did think that a lot of the essays were reaching for the connection between the two things. It didn't always perfectly meld for me. But anyway, it was a really interesting listen for the most part, and it was super short. I got through it in an afternoon. So that is 3.5 stars, How Far the Light Reaches. Okay, so that was book 15. Now for the last book, book 16, which sadly is a 2-star, another 2-star. I've had some bad luck this month. I think it's because a lot of these books I just picked for other reasons than wanting to read them because they fit in my schedule. And I'm pulling from places in my TBR besides like immediately wanting to read them. I don't even know if that makes sense, but it makes sense to me. Anyway, this is The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa. I was very much anticipating to enjoy this, if not love it. I think Kayla from Books and Lala gave it 5 stars, which blows my mind. Her romance taste and my romance taste are like oil and water, because books I've given 5 stars and I think are so lovely and so beautifully written, she's like 3 stars. She gives this specimen 5 stars, and I gave it 2. I thought it was not well written. It was so cringy. It was bland. There was no voice whatsoever. The characters didn't have any chemistry. The banter was painful. The plot was like simultaneously not there and then like made up of little bitty pieces of nothing the whole book. And then right in the middle, randomly a sex party orgy is thrown in. Totally out of place. It was the most interesting scene in the book. But you know what? Honestly, I don't need that scene, because you want some good sex party orgy scenes, just go to AO3. Just go to AO3, my friends. I've read a handful that are great and I have them saved to my hard drive. Anyway, it was just a mess. And I think I could have forgiven all of my issues with the plot and the characters and the situations that they found themselves in if I liked the writing voice, but the writing voice was just so dull. It was so bland. It was like, really? I'm wasting my time on this? Like, it didn't have a voice. Also, the character conflict was just paint by numbers, gotta stick this in place. And also, the characters in this book never had, and this is something I've noticed with mediocre romance writing. They don't understand subtlety. And like, look, I like an over the top thing as much as the next person. What I mean by subtlety in this instance is when people talk about important things, most of the time, they don't come out and say it because it's too close to them, okay? So they speak around it. They cut their sentences off. They look away. They do things that imply their feelings. They don't just come out and say it, okay? Emily Henry is so good at that. Abby Jimenez is so good at that. Like, realistic human interactions where people behave like humans, okay? That's what I want. This was not that. These characters vocalize every single thought they have had, and they say out loud the themes of the book over and over and over again. And it is so boring and just so dull. Like, I don't understand why you like this, guys. Like, I don't know if any of you have read it that are watching, but I don't understand. I don't understand. I mean, it was fine. The writing was like, I can string sentences together, you know, like I know how to use forms of speech, and you know, but it did nothing for me. So 2 stars, and I won't be reading any more of Mia Sosa's books. So that is that. I'm now completed 16 out of 30 of my 30 books in 30 days. Again, 2 books behind. That's fine. Well, let's talk about what I'm currently reading. Daphne by Josh Malerman. I actually started this early on this week, but I got distracted by other books. But it's really short, and I think if I actually just sit down for a couple of hours, I'll be able to get through it really quickly. So maybe not tonight, because I'm tired. I forgot I was tired. And then that's book 17. And then I'm currently also reading book 18, which is The Lottery and Other Stories. Actually, it's probably not going to be 18. It's probably going to be like 24 or 25. The Lottery and Other Stories by Shirley Jackson, because I'm reading a story a day, or at least as many stories as I can before the day I'm supposed to finish it, so that there'll be less stories for me to read that day. Anyway, this is how I get through short story collections. So I'm reading those right now and actually really liking both of them. I just have to finish them. And then books I'm reading that are not part of the 30 books in 30 days. Still reading Waysider by KJ Sutton. Haven't really picked it up since then. And that's really the only thing I'm currently reading that isn't part of 30 books in 30 days. I have since DNF'd Divine Rivals, got over halfway through, and I said, can't take it anymore. I'm just not interested. I'm not gonna read book 2. We're gonna be done. So I DNF'd that one. And then I also DNF'd Moonbound by Robin Sloan. And I DNF'd that for now though. This is not a permanent DNF. This is, I need to get a hard copy of this book and sit down with it and actually pay attention to it, because it's really weird and I can't do it right now on audio. My brain, like I said with the counselor, I can't. I need like different kinds of audiobooks right now than what is that. So that was DNF'd also. And that's that. That is the end of week 2 for this project. And I'm losing my voice, so I need to go make some tea and get ready for bed. And I will edit this in the morning and pop it up for you all to watch. Oh yeah, I forgot last time. Okay, so if you if you made it this far in the video, please leave me a TV for Mr. Magic. And if you like the video, please give me a like and a subscribe. It really helps. Also, you know, like the reason we do this emoji thing, for those of you who don't know, is because the algorithm rates people who get more comments higher and pushes them to more people in a more accurate fashion if you comment. If my video doesn't get engagement, then I'm not going to get more viewers. So I don't know, that's what I've been told. Who cares? But yeah, so if you like the video, please subscribe for more content like this. And with that, I'm signing off. Farewell.